China tightens its controls of exports of its rare earths. China on October 9 tightened its rare earth export controls, expanding restrictions on processing technology, and spelling out its intention to limit exports to overseas defense and semiconductor users. The announcement from the Chinese Ministry of Commerce clarifies and expands sweeping controls announced in April that caused shortages around the world before a series of deals with Europe and the US eased, but did not eliminate the supply crunch. The controls are a major bargaining chip for China in its trade talks with the US. And the tightening comes weeks ahead of a possible face-to-face meeting between U.S. President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping in South Korea. From a geostrategic perspective, this helps with increasing leverage for Beijing ahead of the anticipated Trump-Xi summit in South Korea later this month, said Tim Zhang, founder of Singapore-based Edge Research. China produces more than 90% of the world's processed rare earths and rare earth magnets. The 17 rare earth elements are vital materials in products ranging from electric vehicles to aircraft engines and military radars. Restrictions on exporting the technology to make rare earth magnets would also be expanded to more types of magnets. And China is to limit some components and assemblies that contain restricted magnets. China is the world leader in rare earth technology, and equipment to recycle rare earths would now require a license to export, adding it to the long list of restricted processing technology. Overseas defense users would not be granted licenses, the ministry said, while applications related to advanced semiconductors would only be approved on a case-by-case basis. The new rules bar Chinese companies working with companies overseas on rare earths without permission from the ministry. Manufacturers overseas using any Chinese components or machinery must also apply for licenses to export controlled items, the ministry said. Businesses across the global semiconductor supply chain are bracing themselves for disruptions from an escalating trade war. After China imposed curbs on rare earth mineral exports and the U.S. responded with additional tariffs and restrictions on software sales to the Asian nation. China's restrictions, the most targeted move yet to limit supplies of rare earth materials, represent the first major attempt by Beijing to exercise long-arm jurisdiction over foreign companies to target the semiconductor industry, threatening to stall the chips powering the artificial intelligence (AI) boom. They prompted U.S. President Donald Trump on Friday to announce that he would impose an additional 100% tariff on China and export controls on any and all critical software. A senior manager at a major U.S. chip company said the firm is still assessing potential impacts. But the clearest risk the company is facing now is an increase in the prices of rare earth-dependent magnets that are critical to the chip supply chain. An official at another U.S. chip company said the business is rushing to identify which of its products contain rare earths from China, and is worried that the country's requirement for licenses would grind its supply chain to a halt. Within the semiconductor value chain, China's new export controls will likely most impact chipmakers that use rare earth-based chemicals during the chip fabrication process and toolmakers that integrate rare earth magnets into their equipment, said Jacob Feldgwas, senior data research analyst at Georgetown University's Center for Security and Emerging Technology. It is not the first time that rare earths have landed in the center of U.S.-China trade disputes. After Trump hiked tariffs on Chinese imports earlier this year, Beijing responded by cutting off mineral exports to U.S. companies. Officials from both sides agreed to a truce in the spring, under which Trump lowered duties and Xi's officials agreed to resume the flow of the minerals. A White House official said the government is assessing any impact from the new rules, which were announced without notice and imposed in an apparent effort to exert control over the entire world's technology supply chains. The U.S. House of Representatives Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party panned Beijing for the move, describing the restrictions as an economic declaration of war against the U.S. Germany has already introduced measures to diversify its supply of raw materials, and the German Ministry for Economic Affairs and Energy on Friday called China's curbs a great concern. Rare earth.
稀土
restriction
限制约束
process
动词原物料的加工资料的处理名词加工方法过程步骤
bargaining chip
为达成协议的谈判筹码
Geostrategic perspective
地缘战略的观点
leverage
动词运用借助某情势来达成或实现名词杠杆原理影响力
magnet
磁体具有吸引力的人物或地点
component
零件成分组件
application
应用运用应用软体申请请求用途
brace 动词
支撑加固防备名词支架牙套
disruption
打断中断扰乱颠覆改变产业的传统运作
curb
动词控制限制约束名词控制限制约束道路的路边
threaten
威胁恐吓危害
prompt
名词提示动词导致造成引起形容词快速的敏捷的
assess
评价评估
identify
识别认出指认确定表明
equipment
设备器材用具
hike
名词提高价格调涨动词提高调升价格或费用
truce
休战停战讲和
resume
中断之后的重新开始恢复 继续，重返。
war declaration, war declaration.
宣战。
diversify, diversify.
多样化，使发生变化、差异，多角化经营。